In a studio that's in a basement comes the epic story of how two friends changed the future of the movie podcast game forever. The reviews are in. Boys Life magazine gives the High Sci podcast 4.5 acorns. The Daily Bugle says, these guys are super legit. And Pope Francis declares the podcast as life-affirming. From the kid who tried to get smart with David Spade and got fucking old.
You're still bad.
And the guy who can name all four Baldwin brothers.
Alec, William, Daniel, and the baby boy, Stephen.
Live from the studio of his parents' basement. The Have You Seen It podcast.
Welcome back to the Have You Seen It podcast. My name is Mason Knight. Sitting across from me is the one and only Cash Krause. Cash, how you doing today?
Doing pretty good. Just taking a swig of delicious H2O.
Well, you know, there's not much better to
You gotta feel your body.
And refuel your
Yeah.
body. Absolutely.
I'll never forget one time drinking mid intro. I fucked up somehow and just water, and I just had to pretend it didn't happen.
It didn't happen, right? Well, you're a professional.
I just screwed it on, but I was soaked.
Yeah.
I was soaked, and I don't think anyone ever caught it, but I never looked at the comments on the video just because I was so scared that someone would be like, "Did anyone else see that fucking idiot spill water everywhere?" Like, give that guy a sippy cup.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, he's a full-grown man. He can't even drink water.
Was he have Parkinson's? But yeah.
Oh, man.
But it haunts me. It haunts me.
It does, yeah. Still to this day, I can tell. You're very deeply and emotionally affected.
Absolutely, yeah. PTSD.
This is our Blockbuster Monday, Cash.
Absolutely, it is. And there wasn't really anything that jumped out on us.
Not this week. We do have a film next week, which I'm very excited
Oh, yeah.
for.
So
Devil All the Time.
So we went back a little bit because this isn't really a new film.
No,
it's
this
been
was
out
released
for a
in
while.
June. Yeah.
But we are reacting to / reviewing a biopic.
Yeah.
About famed horror author Shirley Jackson, titled Shirley, starring Elisabeth Moss.
Wow.
Should we just start off immediately just praising Elisabeth Moss?
Well, you know, and Xenu. Xenu and Elisabeth Moss.
Famed Scientologist. We have to make that clear.
One of the greatest acting coaches all
you gotta
time
think,
is the great
You got to think
mighty
he's
Xenu.
helping. You got to think he's giving some kind of tips.
Tips and tricks, man, from his spaceship.
Because, you know, there's not like a lot of basketball players that are thanking Xenu
for their athletic ability. No.
But there is a lot of actors.
There are.
Xenu is a straight up actor god.
And one thing Xenu appreciates is
he must come from a planet where
theatrics.
the theaters are kept in high regard.
Dude, I'm saying they're like
which I love that
staging
planet.
events,
I love that planet.
100,000 aliens
just
just
the arts.
congregating.
There's no sports.
No
arts.
COVID-19.
No, it's just
they're just all watching beautiful theatrical
plays,
theaters, movies. They love it.
It is. It's like sporting events. People are cheering, going wild. But yeah, man, he does good work because he's turning out a lot of good actors these days, and we can only praise him.
We can, and in Hollywood, that is what we do. Xenu, you know, whatever.
Yeah, fuck, dude. If I was down there, yeah, sign me up.
If I can get into a bunch of movies,
what do I gotta
I'll tell
do?
you my dirt.
Yeah, I just have to.
This.
Yeah, I just have to give you my wife.
Yeah.
Is that all? Is that all I have to do? You lock her up for one?
All right, that's fine by me.
Sign me up. But yeah, I gotta say though, getting into this. Biopics are not my favorite genre of film. They're not something that really excites me.
I think it depends on who it is for me.
Yeah, I think so too, but I just think, you know, there's so many really good biopics that I just haven't seen yet. Just because, again, it's not, I still haven't seen Lincoln.
Lincoln's amazing, dude. Daniel Day-Lewis
But there are certain biopics when it's done in an interesting take that I love. Mm-hmm. I loved Rocket Man. Of course. I loved it because that really mixed fantasy and whatnot. But I also like biopics when it makes the main character not, you know, the main antagonist. Mm-hmm. Like Shirley Jackson is, you know, the person we're supposed to be learning about. Right. But she's not like the main. There's another couple, and I really like when they split that up. Like A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, it wasn't just Mr. Rogers. It was about the guy interviewing Mr. Rogers. So I really like when they do that. But I have to say, I love this biopic. I mean, as far as it goes, I loved.
Well, and there
this
kind of
biopic.
is like a psychological twist to it, in my opinion. Like
Oh,
it was
absolutely.
very,
And that's what I wanted a biopic.
Mm-hmm.
I want an interesting take. I just don't want a straight up dramatized version of their life.
yes,
I want
basically just a retelling
because
of
it's
their
been done so many times.
Yeah.
And I get it. They're good, you know, Amadeus, Gandhi. They're good, of course. Of
course.
course they're really good. But it's just been done. So I like a really interesting spin. And what this director did, Josephine Decker, was she did it in the style of a Shirley Jackson novel. It was like a thriller.
And
It's
that, yeah.
so interesting, I thought.
That was one of the things I appreciated that about this film the most.
Yeah.
Shirley Jackson, obviously, most famously, one of the most famous, you know, she's obviously a writer, but, you know, Haunting a Hill House.
And someone I don't know a lot about. And someone
I
that's,
didn't know a
and
lot
someone
about
that's
her
kind
either.
of hard to find much about her. She was very, very private because she dealt with severe mental
Anxiety
illness.
and
Well,
mental
anxiety,
illness.
depression, but most likely bipolar, schizophrenic.
And she died fairly young, too. She died at 48 years old.
Well,
you
she
know, from
only
health
had
conditions.
6 novels. 6 novels, a ton of short stories,
she
but
did.
6 really, really good novels. But she left a ton of short stories. The Lottery is one short story that everyone kind of knows. But yeah, Haunting of Hill House is, you know, probably her most recognized work.
I think now, especially with the
Yeah.
series coming out.
The
on
Lottery,
Netflix.
you read it a lot in school. But yeah, The Haunting of Hill House, I think, is her most famous work. But so I was glad to go into this and not know a whole lot about her.
Right. Well, and a lot of famous writers were inspired by her as well.
Oh yeah, dude,
know,
she was so.
Stephen King being one of them.
She died in the 60s. She was
she did.
so ahead of her time.
Way ahead of her time.
So, but yeah, I really enjoyed it. I loved that they made this. It was a biopic, but they did it in the style of a thriller and a horror film.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a really interesting take. I thought the director, Josephine Decker, did a really good job. But Elisabeth Moss,
Stole the show per usual.
just the character that she can just sink her teeth into
Oh my
and just
God.
go
And
wild.
that's something with Elisabeth Moss is she never takes, and I don't want to call it a lazy role, but she never takes a lazy role where you know, because of her, you know, A-list talent, that you know that like she could just take a role and easily do.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I feel like she genuinely challenges herself every role that she takes. It's something new, unique, and different. Where I'm just like, how does she do it? How does
I
she
don't
do
know.
it? And she does it so convincingly too. She really is phenomenal.
Yeah, she's what you want out of an actor.
Yes.
Exactly. Is that she's willing to take these heavy roles and one right after another. Yeah. Handmaid's Tale, probably the most exhausting role you could take.
Oh my God.
I mean,
I don't know how
it
you
takes
even do that.
so much. It's like, I mean, it's literally portraying a rape victim every single
Every
day
episode.
you're going to work.
Yeah.
Every single day.
And not just
then-
a rape victim, but dealing with kidnapping, dealing with abuse, dealing
Yes.
with being a slave.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh my God.
Mentally exhausting.
Heavy, man.
And then she goes and she does Invisible Man, which is pretty much just an allegory for domestic abuse.
Like, of course.
Another very, very heavy
topic.
film.
Yes.
And then she goes to this, which is another very heavy, a film entirely about mental illness.
Yes.
So I'm so impressed by her, dude.
I know,
She's gonna win so many Oscars. She really is, in my mind, the next Meryl Streep, which is that's the highest praise you can give someone.
And I don't think that's overblown whatsoever. I completely and utterly agree with you.
Yeah, I
I
think
mean, all of her work is phenomenal.
once she starts winning awards, it'll be like every year.
just, yeah,
every
you
year,
keep the train
every year,
going.
once she's in something, she'll give an amazing performance. Because I think this came out in 2020. I absolutely think she deserves an Oscar nod for this role.
Yes.
A nomination for it.
I completely agree with you.
She just did so good. And it's kind of it's because usually when you win biopics, it's usually a puff piece, you know?
Yep.
You're usually supposed to really love the person it's based on, you know? This,
You don't really go
You
away
hate her.
loving her. Because especially at the end, which we won't get into, but you realize just how...
yeah, it was. It
malicious
does
it all
not.
was.
Absolutely, it does not shine a pretty light on Shirley Jackson
It does not
or
whatsoever.
her husband.
or her husband, yeah.
Which I love
played
that.
by
I love that.
Michael Stuhlbarg.
Who
And, dude,
them playing off each other? I mean, he's
God.
been in so much shit. The first thing I saw him in was probably Men in Black 3.
Yep.
But
that's a throwback.
He's
That's a-
always a side character, but
Uh-huh.
he's so. And in this, he's just fucking fantastic.
dude.
They play off each other so well, man. They feel like they've been married for 30 years.
It does in like just a crazy relationship where they
60s.
play off of each other how crazy they are.
And they're this like real liberal, you know, he's a professor and
yes.
he's just fucking cheating on her.
Yep.
Every day.
And it
With
makes
the
no
dean's
bones about
wife.
it either.
And it's 65. So it's people are fucking everyone. Actually, it's pre-65. It's earlier than that.
Yeah, it is.
So it's a wild fucking time, dude. But they did it so well. You really felt like you were there and into the 60s, man.
There's something about him too where he's so captivating on screen. Like he really brings you in whatever character he plays.
Oh, he's good.
I've seen him.
He's good at playing the bad guy too, man. He's good at playing this manipulative, just a horrible person.
And that's what they were. Both of these two were just so
they played off each other,
incredibly
yeah.
manipulative.
But you really start to feel bad for Shirley Jackson to where he was very obviously taking advantage of her mental illness.
Oh, of course, because he was also profiting off of it.
Yeah, wild, dude. And how he just got the couple in there just to keep her going, just so they can ruin that couple's life, just so she could have enough motivation to write a novel.
Yeah. And that's what it was. That's what all of it was stemming towards. Like, yeah, it's incredible.
But I love the take. I love that they mixed that horror element. It made it feel like you were watching a Shirley Jackson, even though it wasn't a horror at all. It was but it was done in that way.
And I love the way that they use these elements of jumping into reality and real life with this Fred and Rosie couple, and then jumping into the character of Paula, played by Rosie.
Yes, that felt very. It feels very indie. Mm-hmm. All of the scenes were shot so beautifully. The cinematography and scenes like that were shot very, very well done. You know, sometimes you see
experimental.
Exactly. Sometimes you see an indie film and it doesn't really have a real indie feel. But this film has a very, very indie feel about it, and I love that because it's a big biopic.
It is.
I mean, it's not a big film. It wasn't made for a ton of money, but Shirley Jackson, that's a big.
It's a big name.
It's a big task to take on. You know, so it's got to be done right.
Yeah. And the film was only 107 minutes, too, less than 2 hours, which is, I thought, was just the right runtime for this. I didn't think you needed anything more than that.
No, absolutely not. It was perfect in that sense, absolutely. But yeah, I like that it was a new kind of take on the tortured genius, where it really didn't romanticize her mental illness, you know, like A Beautiful Mind kind of does, where it really kind of romanticized that he was schizophrenic. This, not at all, man.
No.
You don't want it.
Nope.
You don't want any part. I mean, she's a genius, but she fucking paid heavily for her genius in the worst way possible. You don't want to live like that.
I know.
Where she couldn't even pull herself out of bed.
No. Well, she would go through these cycles of not doing dishes, not even getting out of bed, and
very bipolar.
Bipolar, very bipolar, and like even people around the neighborhood and stuff just would talk very ill of this woman. Never gave her the time of day. Said she was a crazy person because she was writing these horror novels, you know, or these psychological thriller novels. So.
Yeah, and pretty much that her husband, Stanley Edgar Hyman, was just like her caretaker, pretty much, to where he had to dress her and get her. But really, man, he was just taking advantage of her just as much as he was taking care of her.
He did some very fucked up things to her, too. Like just blatantly telling her, oh, I think I'm going to go visit the dean's wife.
Yeah, man, like, that was such a well-shot scene, that first dinner scene.
Yep.
Where the phone rings, and she's like, if that phone rings again during dinner time, and it's that whore, whatever she calls her.
Yeah, that whore.
And you could tell he's just like, I won't let it happen again. But man, it's just crazy, dude. And I mean, I'm not going to say that I knew a lot about Shirley. I knew very little about Shirley Jackson.
I only knew the basics, too, of like what she wrote and stuff.
But again, I looked up videos to try to find an interview or anything. Couldn't find a single interview. Couldn't find anything. She was very, very private. Which is still amazing that Elisabeth Moss could do such a convincing role with so little, you know. Just getting the sense of, I'm guessing, from her books.
Yeah, that's the thing with Elisabeth Moss too. You know, she does her research on these types of characters that she does portray.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But yeah, Shirley Jackson, she was kind of a bitch.
Yeah, I'd say so. Not the best person alive.
Just very, kind of upper class kind of thinking that. I mean, she's not. You never thought. You know, it was the '60s. You know, so it was real open mind, free love, and stuff. But her and the professor definitely thought that they were above
Yes.
The couple living with him. And the couple's played by, Logan Lerman, who's in a ton of stuff,
Hunters on Amazon Prime. Great show.
Yeah, Hunters.
With
Hunters
Al
is the
Pacino
most.
himself.
Yeah, Perks of Being a Wallflower. And he's Percy Jackson.
And Percy Jackson. Yeah, still have not seen those films. But
No, they're
everyone,
not. They're not
anytime
great.
people bring up Logan Lerman,
They
they're
bring
like,
him out,
Percy
yeah.
Jackson. I'm like, I didn't even see those. It's not that big a deal to
They're
me.
not great at all. They're like teen
Yeah.
action films, but the books are pretty good.
Oh, yeah.
The books are pretty, but he's good in it for sure. Absolutely. And his Victoria Peretti, who I don't know, is kind of the lead. And she is, you really fucking feel bad for her. Oh no, it's Odessa Young.
Yeah,
who
Odessa
plays
Young,
Rose,
yeah.
You really fucking feel bad for her. She's in the middle of this two insane people, and she's just got in the middle.
When she's tormented too between Shirley Jackson and her husband, she thinks Fred's this great guy. She holds him in high regard, and I knew right away in the very beginning of this film when he comes home and he doesn't want to have sex. When she said she was pregnant,
bro.
and I was like, okay,
if
that's
some
a red
young
flag.
guy comes home and doesn't want,
And
that
he's
means
like,
because he doesn't
no.
want you to smell his dick, because he's got
Right.
someone else's fucking smell on that
Yeah,
dick.
exactly,
So you could
for
tell
sure.
exactly, yeah. But she was the real tortured one.
She was.
She was just caught in the middle of this crazy
Situation,
scheme of
too.
this couple that immediately, right when they moved in, they immediately knew that they were going to ruin this couple.
Yeah.
That was the entire reason.
Well, Stanley Hyman, Shirley Jackson's husband, would purposely say inflammatory things to Fred about his.
Well, surely
not his
don't.
thesis,
Surely
but whatever
don't
it
you
was.
don't forget. Immediately was the first one to mention that Rose
pregnancy.
was pregnant.
Yeah.
Which immediately that gave you the sense. That's like 30 minutes in. You go, oh my god, dude, these people aren't meant to be rooted for. And I love that in a biopic.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a different kind of take.
Well, it shows you the deep flaws of human beings because I think, especially with artists, they're not always these picture perfect people.
They're never,
like they
people
think.
are never
like,
one dimensional. Yeah.
Yeah, to use like a biopic explanation of this, it's like Bohemian Rhapsody, where it's like, oh, Freddie Mercury, perfect, everything's perfect. Well, that's not how rock and roll's lifestyle is.
No,
it's
yeah.
not always perfect. There's drug use, there's sex with hundreds of men and stuff. Like there's all these different things. Don't always glamorize and just make the best parts of people's lives. You also have to show
it shouldn't be
the darker elements
again.
of it
shouldn't.
as well.
It shouldn't be a puff piece. It
Yes.
shouldn't be just propaganda of the
the
to
person.
sell records and whatnot. Like that. That's a perfect example, though. Bohemian Rhapsody is a perfect example to where all the remaining band members all came out and said, "No, you can't make us look bad in any way."
In any way, shape, or form.
Because that's not if it's a biopic, it's got to be true to the story. Why
And
do a biopic? I mean, and a biopic is directly based on someone's life, and then take advantage and then not do the real story of it.
And by no means did I like the film, but I at least appreciated their honesty. Dirt, the Motley Crue one, at least that one was like, okay, hey, look, we're shitbags.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, at least they were showing that.
In this, you get that sense.
You do. You do,
You
but
do.
this is a very well-crafted film.
And even when, absolutely, yeah. And even when it's like things are going good, you know things are going to go bad. Like even when like Shirley and Rose kind of had a mini affair,
Well, and right before that
which was
mini
hinted
affair,
at, and I didn't think,
Yes,
I wasn't
it
sure
was.
if they were ever going to get into it. Because we've seen some films now where we think there's going to be
Yeah,
sex.
yeah, it leads us on, and then we're like,
First
nothing's
cow.
going to happen.
First cow, we thought
was
they were
one of
going to
them.
be
Oh,
gay.
absolutely.
They thought they were going
For
to be gay
sure.
as hell, but not at all. They were just best friends.
Yeah, they were.
So that's been kind of flipped on our head recently.
It has.
But yeah, I wasn't really sure, but they definitely hint at it. But I liked that element of it. And sometimes I'm not for it. But
One of my favorite scenes in this whole film was when they're out in the forest.
yes,
And the mushroom scene, right?
Oh, the
where
death cap.
Elizabeth Moss talks about the death cap, yeah, and then she's like, "Yeah, this could kill you in an instant, in a second. All you have to do is eat it." And then she eats it, and Rose is freaking out. She's like, "Shirley, you need to spit that out because she knows too. She's got
Yeah.
mental problems. Like she's not all there." And Shirley Jackson, Elizabeth Moss, just starts laughing. Like almost hysterically, like no, and then picks the mushroom right next to her and says, "These are perfectly fine.
Yeah,
they were in your
oyster
food
mushroom, yeah.
for breakfast this morning."
But then she tries to get her to eat it with her. Remember, she goes, "Let's split one. We'll both die
She
right
goes-
now.
yeah,
It'll start
she
your
goes-
heart. It'll stop your heart right now." Yeah, I love that, dude. They were so dark,
is.
kind of a precursor to emo girls.
Yeah, exactly.
kind of yeah, for sure. But I like that, man.
Well, and it forced her to trust Shirley too, because that is exactly what Shirley Jackson wanted. She wanted Rose's trust, so that way she could manipulate and tear the relationship even farther. And she says that specifically in that scene. And I think it's the whole precipice for like what the film was and how they were tearing this relationship apart. I thought that scene was brilliantly written and performed.
And it was cool because it wasn't like a conventional biopic to where you get like birth to death. Mm-hmm. It was just like a slice of just one piece of Shirley Jackson's life.
Yes.
But I like that because you really get a sense of who the person is, because it feels like it was just pulled from their lives, you know? You're not getting the entire... You don't have to
get the whole story.
The childhood, you're just getting this part. And it's cool because when we get there, she's already established.
She is.
Rose knows that she is this hidden, almost Bram Stoker-esque figure.
Well, and when Rose is introduced
drawn
to
in
her,
by it, yeah.
The first time she talks to her is on the stair, and she goes, I read the lottery. It gave me this sense of horrific horrific whatever she said, I forget. Something where she felt horrified about it.
Yeah.
You know, and so she is already well established.
And that really draws her in. She makes her really curious about it. And that's where they kind of up the thriller element of it, of when she's sneaking around Shirley's like office, you know, and then she's like in the corner or whatever. They really up that. And of course the element of the girl going missing, who was an inspiration to the Hangsman, or the novel that she's writing during this film.
And I like that too.
Because it was super experimental.
It was.
When it would flash to scenes of like college students out and stuff. Mm-hmm. And everything was shot so cool and so dynamic. There was constantly these really, really every time something became intense, really close-ups. Yep. And it kind of became dynamic, though, where it was moving around the person. And that, even to the last scene, you know, where they're sitting at the dinner table, and it's just a close-up of her, and he's talking off-screen. But, you know, it's not switching back and forth. I like that a lot.
I love that, too. It was perfect.
Makes
just what you needed.
Makes it really intense, and makes it feel like he was like the voice in her head.
Yeah. It does, because he was sitting out on the couch, remember, and he's just out of focus. You don't see him. He grunts, and it's such a long take.
He
gets up, and he comes completely off camera, and she's sitting there. And for a moment, you can tell. And this is what I love about it, because it's not a one-dimensional character where Shirley is just maniacal and evil at all times. You can tell for a slight moment she felt bad about what she did to Stanley and Rose's relationship. But then when he said it was a masterpiece, you see the change in her eyes where she goes, oh, perfect. This is what I wanted to hear. I wanted the gratification, and it was all worth it. That's what I saw in her eyes in that moment.
And
again, so hard to convey.
It ends in a very uppity note, but you get the opposite feeling from it.
Yes.
you get a horrible feeling like, oh my God, this woman is so clearly mentally unfit to even be on her own. But this guy is manipulating her, and they shouldn't be anywhere within the same state.
No.
Because
they should not be.
But she's so mentally not there that she didn't even realize that as soon as he said, but it's a masterpiece, she didn't care that she ruined the lives of this couple.
Exactly.
So that really just showed her how far along her mental illness was at this point. But he, again, was just poking and prodding and using it.
Of course
so she wasn't getting any help. Just anyone could have taken, I mean, it was the 60s, of course, still, and there wasn't a lot known, but she wasn't getting any of the help that she needed to get, and a professor knew that, obviously.
Of course he knew that, but he was just using it for his advantage, so he could go sleep with other women.
And he loved the life that he was living, money. And because she was able, I mean, it's the best life ever.
It is.
He goes and parties all day, and she's stuck in the house.
Yep.
Slaving over these.
He knows she's not doing anything, not going to go anywhere.
Yeah.
And she's also, you know, in part the breadwinner too.
Exactly, and it plays on that kind of 60s housewife thing too, where she again was very ahead of that, and she even talks to Rose like, "What is this? What you want to do?"
Because she goes because when you're totally right, because when Rose goes, yeah, Fred said excuse me, not Fred. Fred. When he goes, he said I can go back to school after this, and she goes, she laughs. She goes, oh, so he told you could go back.
Oh,
to school?
he gave you permission.
He gave you permission. Yeah. Gave you permission.
But it's like an unheard of thing. Like for her to even say something like that, you know, it's unheard of. So she was way ahead of her time, dude, and ended up dying of a heart attack because she was gaining and losing weight, obviously, because of depression. She was putting on, and she was a heavy smoker. Died at 48, dude.
That's so
how many novels did we not get out of her?
Probably could have got another 15.
Because she never could get the help.
No.
And her husband ended up releasing a ton of her work even after she was dead as well. I don't know, because it's hard to tell, to gauge from just this small section of these people's lives that this guy was only a bad guy. but you really get that sense, though.
You do.
But it's hard to say that he was just this one kind of evil kind of character, because of course he was good to her at times. He was. You never got the sense that he didn't actually love her.
But he also used that love to his advantage.
Absolutely. But he really did seem like they were the only ones that could be together. But he was obviously taking advantage of that by cheating, even on the dean's wife, his boss's wife.
On his boss's
and the dean
wife.
didn't even care.
Hey, that's a ballsy move.
It was the 60s.
It was the 60s.
I love that scene when they go to the house and it's just a fucking orgy, dude. Yeah. Cool.
I do like the... I talked about it briefly earlier, but the Rose and Paula scenes, I really love that final scene when she's out on the ledge and she says, "Oh, it really doesn't take an effort to just all it would take is a step out."
Yep.
And it kind of left it on a cliffhanger for the character of Paula as well, as you kind of didn't know how the novel was going to end. And it kind of, for me, felt open-ended because then you see Elisabeth Moss, Shirley Jackson, holding the baby as well out there on the rock.
Well, and
you're like, what happened?
And you almost feel like it's going to be this mystery about her, that girl this girl that disappears from this college, but it's not that at all.
Nope, it's not.
And it's even the kind of thing that you're supposed to kind of walk away thinking, she didn't disappear at all. She went out to the woods to kill herself. Like so many very depressed women that can't get help during this time go and do. And that was kind of the thing at the end when she was like, oh, she didn't disappear. She went out here to die, with probably the death cap or whatever. Yeah. So I like that they didn't get in like it's this big mystery, because I thought almost at first they were going to try to say Stanley had a role in it or whatever. But
they alluded to that.
They do, but it's not about that at all. That
not.
Chick probably did not get murdered. She probably did just disappear. I mean, just went off and killed herself.
Offed herself,
Yeah, exactly. But I loved him, man. I love the whole thing. And I was so surprised. I knew nothing about this film going in at all.
Nor did I.
But I was so surprised and so happy how good it really was. Yeah. I'd recommend it. I'd definitely recommend it to anyone, especially if you're a Shirley Jackson fan. I feel like you probably couldn't be happier about the biopic that she gets.
No kidding, because you probably could have ruined this had you not done it right.
And I can't imagine how many people of big fans of things get biopics and it's made and it fucking sucks. Like, I'm so scared of the day that the David Bowie biopic comes out.
Yeah,
because that can be so good, so amazing, or it could be so fucking bad.
It could be. It really.
So I fear that.
It is scary. It's very scary, guys.
But I was so happy with the Rocket Man, with the Elton John.
So was I.
I was so surprised by that.
Awesome.
Yeah,
one of the best ones, honestly, especially musically. So we'll just talk about the accolades real quick. As we had talked about earlier, this was put into the Sundance Film Festival back in January. The date of ceremony was February 1st, and it did win for U.S. Dramatic Special Jury Award for the auteur filmmaking.
Yeah, so it did come out this year, so it is in running for. And, it's a small film, so I wouldn't be surprised. But this is one that I'll be upset if Elisabeth Moss.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Of course, Elisabeth Moss, she could be nominated for Invisible Man as well.
She could. There's a lot of things she could be nominated for these days.
Yeah, so it's pick your poison, I guess. With Elisabeth Moss, she could be nominated. And if she comes out with another film this year, which I don't know if she is, I'm sure that could probably be nominated as well. She's so good, dude.
She is. I love everything she's in.
Thank you, Zeno, for giving us.
Zeno, thank you for the blessing of Elisabeth Moss.
So
and Tom
bountiful
Cruise.
with your actors.
Yes, so bountiful with your talent.
Yes.
He is the best agent around. That's for sure.
He really is. He really is. He's making the cold calls.
Thank you, Zeno.
He's getting in there, except for
that
Grease.
guy, John Travolta.
John Travolta. Zeno.
What's going on there?
Help him out. Have you forgotten?
Have you forgotten about
your
boy?
baby boy?
Your boy?
I've started you, Zeno.
God, the Fanatic was just fantastic.
Help him out, please. Yeah, I don't know what's going on there.
Nor do I. do I. Alrighty. Well, that is our review for Shirley. If you guys like what you're seeing here and you're watching on YouTube, please be sure to like this video, comment below, subscribe to the channel, and hit that bell notification as we drop videos here every single day. If you're listening in audio format or want to check out our podcast, you can find our podcast on Spotify, iTunes, SoundCloud, Google Play, and Stitcher. Social media pages, Twitter, Seen It Podcast. Cash is on Twitter. That's Just Cash. Instagram, Have You Seen It? Facebook, Have You Seen It Podcast. Thank you so much for watching and listening. My name is Mason Knight. That is Cash Krause, and until next time.
Bye.